Thank you for joining for our live group demonstration. We're excited to have everyone here, and from wherever that may be. We had a couple people from Europe that were registered, and that was actually from some of you that may have joined us from our bite-sized webinar last week on building your custom STEM course. And as a way to get started, my name is Nathan. I've been with Digital Ed for about a year now. Go ahead and present yourself, Steve.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Steve. I've been here for about 8 months, and I work with institutions on the East Coast of the US, as well as some of the central states as well.
Alrighty, so a little bit of housekeeping before we actually start the presentation. For the first portion of the discussion, we're actually going to review what we do and why. So this will include our pedagogical reasonings and the science or data that supports our views on blended learning and technology from the 300 plus institutions we work with currently worldwide. Then in the second half, we're actually going to dive into the platform to show how our system Möbius puts these beliefs and methods into practice. So it is going to be very high level just to show the power of the engine and the unique capabilities of the platform, and why our content, which you saw last week if you're attending from there, and the level of interactivity and student engagement is truly powerful and important for the students' success. So we are going to be using the chat function for the Zoom, chat function of Zoom for this session. Please respond to all if you do have a question. It's likely another viewer has the same questions, so that'll keep everyone on the same page. And anyone that watches the recording, I'll gladly ask the question out to Steve. I have no problem interrupting him, so please give me every opportunity to. We strongly encourage everyone to ask questions and keep things highly interactive. And we'll leave a little bit of time at the end just to kind of explore and go wherever you guys want to check out. So without further ado, I'll pass things over to Steve to start their presentation.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Nate. Yeah, anytime there's questions throughout, feel free to throw those in. We appreciate sort of any questions because we are going to be focusing on pretty high level on the platform. As you know, last week we focused on the content, and some of the folks came over from that webinar. So yeah, we'll go through a brief presentation. We'll show the power of Möbius. I'll leave some time for questions at the end. But really, we're focusing on optimal digital learning within math and other STEM subjects. So let me just move to my next slide here. So Nate sort of alluded to this. We work with 300 plus schools today. We're actually a relatively new company headquartered in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. But our product's been around for several years. It's battle tested. It's been used by leading schools for many, many years, like schools like the University of Waterloo or Chalmers. So schools in North America, but also schools in Europe, Asia Pacific, and really enabling them to have these automated assessments, this powerful experience, which we'll talk about today. One of the questions we like to ask upfront is just, what are some of your biggest gaps in online education for math or any STEM subject in general? I'm not going to sort of make you type in the chat, but we'll go through some of the things that we've heard from some of our clients. The first one, it's difficult to teach a STEM subject in my learning management system. You know, I've actually worked for a learning management system provider before, and really it's kind of like a one size fits all approach as it relates to a learning management system. And they lack the complexity required to deliver STEM subjects, and we'll go into some of the details on that today. The second thing we've heard is, you know, from a testing perspective, testing math or testing STEM subjects, multiple choice is just not effective. You know, multiple choice as an example, you know, a student can, you know, dwindle the possible answers down to 2. So they give themselves a 50% chance of getting it right off the hop. Third thing we hear, especially as it relates to a lot of publisher-based content, is that instructors are locked in. They lack the ability to make changes to the content, to make it their own. You know, the world is an evolving place where instructors want that content to evolve at the same pace and be able to make some of the changes that we want. And that's been a challenge for instructors in the past. And the final one, and this is a big one in Möbius, is the inability to practice. So being able to give students questions within math or STEM subjects, and get them to try those questions, try another, get instant feedback. That's something that's typically missing for a lot of instructors today. So again, how do we do this? with our unique STEM capability. So today, again, from a high level, we're focusing on the platform side of things. We will touch on a little bit of the content that we talked about last week on that webinar. But really within the platform, there's a lot of unique STEM capabilities to really power the experience for students. So we have things like interactive exercises, complex visuals, plots, interactive apps and activities. You know, a lot of instructors find that they're used to a lot of online content being static, maybe just uploading a PDF text or maybe uploading a video or a recording of a lecture. We really go beyond that. And part of going beyond that is the powerful math engine that's actually behind the scenes of Möbius as well. We're leveraging the Maple math engine. So that really powers a lot of the enhanced experience that we have for students. Things like inline questions within the text, as opposed to just static text, where a student would actually have to go outside of the system to write their answer. One of the first concepts that we want to talk about, just as it relates to the platform, is what we call the forgetting curve. So the question, are your students forgetting content? When we talk about the forgetting curve, within 1 hour, students will learn 50% of a knowledge that they learn from a lecture or from any sort of source of information. And then within 2 days, they've lost 70%. That means a student's really only retaining 30% of a lecture. So what are we doing to help with this? We actually try to interrupt the forgetting curve and move that knowledge from short-term to long-term memory by continually asking questions, inline assessments, and using small spurts of learning followed by lots of practice to help anchor those concepts into memory. And then as it relates to the learning management system, one of the questions we like to ask is, can your learning management system ask open-ended math questions? So as an example, provide the equation of a line that passes through X, Y, and accept any mathematically correct answer to that. Typically, you know, within math, engineering, other STEM subjects, you don't want to just ask a static question. You really want to test the student's knowledge of any given concept. So Möbius is math native. It really understands any mathematically equivalent answer. So as it relates to marking, I mean, this is a huge area for some instructors. You know, you can save thousands and thousands of hours in marking these pieces that are either homework, quizzes, exams, and really that's the power of the math engine that powers Möbius. We can do things like mathematical equivalency because the engine is math native. So things like syntax is no longer an issue. We hear that a lot with some open source systems or even just other math assessment tools, is that instructors really need to teach the students the syntax prior to them going into the system and doing these questions and putting their responses. So that's a nice thing we've heard from a lot of our instructors. It's not having to do that training on the syntax prior to going in and just making it easy for the students to input their answers. And then things like authentic assessment. So this is maybe a classic question here. So a true false, the line 5x plus 5 passes through the point 321. So again, a simple true false, which could be done in any learning management system. But now we're asking the student to actually apply the concept, to really prove that they really understand the concept. So, you know, with Möbius, we really want to anchor the concepts as opposed to just asking those simple true false multiple choice numeric questions by having, in this case, you know, an equation editor based question to really anchor that. And I always like to call this out. The math engine behind Möbius is used in math research at the highest levels. We hear this from a lot of instructors that we talk to. Well, hey, I used Maple in when going through for my PhD. That's not to say that Möbius can only be used for those high level courses, because it can, but you know, it can be used at all levels of math or STEM subjects. The nice thing within Möbius is those questions are actually created within the user interface. So because it has the powerful math engine behind the scenes, doesn't make it complex to get up and running. that power is there if you need it. But again, you can create questions directly within the UI, and I'll show kind of what that looks like. This is another concept that we like to cover. Sort of talks about the difference between mass practice and distributed practice. And I mean, we like to focus on distributed practice here because we believe, with lots of practice and small spurts of learning, like a small lecture, students will actually retain more information. And as the slide loads, you'll get to that. But you can see with the mass practice, that's similar to more like a 3-hour lecture. And what we found, and what a lot of research has shown, is that the distributed practice ends up leading to students retaining more information. So we'll touch on a couple slides on the starter bundle. And I know the folks that are joining from last week, this was covered in more detail, but this is a really important piece for the platform, because even if you're not replacing a textbook with a content pack in our starter bundle, these content packs will help you get started a lot quicker. So we have some instructors that are using our content packs as the assessment piece, and then switching over to replacing a textbook after a year or so, or after a couple terms. So either way, either you want to change a textbook, you want to redevelop a course, or you're looking for a better assessment tool for like a calculus 1 or a physics course, and you want to leverage some of the questions and assignments that are pre-built within Möbius, so you can just get started right away. So all of these content packs leverage the power of Möbius that I've talked about so far. So all those different question types, the interactives, those pieces that you wouldn't see in other platforms, those exist in here. That's not to say that if you teach a course outside of one of the content packs listed here, that you can't use Möbius. We have a lot of instructors using Möbius for engineering, for chemistry. I mean, the list goes on and on. And we do have content that actually exists outside of these, which we can bring in and talk about if there's interest in sort of exploring some of that. But yeah, you can really bring in your own content, create your own questions. And the nice thing about our payment model and our pricing model is it's pretty flexible. We can either be an institution paid model or a student paid model. So if there's any questions on that, we can definitely answer some of those either later on or after the call. So again, related to content, there's many sources of content. What makes us different? So again, those embedded complex visuals, plots, graphics, and I think this is going to load here. I believe so. It may not. It might just be a little slow.
It hasn't loaded yet.
Yeah, here.
But it's going to seem very elementary if you've seen the content webinar from last week. Oh,
yeah, yeah, that is true. So again, those complex visuals, plots, graphics, interactive apps into the lessons. I'm a visual learner and I love being able to see things. And I wish that we were using Möbius when I was going through some of my courses. I'm thinking back to my Calculus for Business course, which that instructor is now actually using Möbius at the University of Windsor. So that I always like to hear that. You're able to use the formula editor to write out complex equations in true math notation instead of clunky syntax. The interactive narratives allow you to narrate slideshows or videos and embed questions directly within, and that's what we're looking at right here. So it's a stop in an interactive narrative where we have a question actually built in. So some advanced features that a lot of customers are taking advantage of. And then more so on the content perspective, we really see these two sources. So publisher and OER. So think of publisher as being classic Pearson, etc., where they're providing out of the box content. It's easy to get started, but really lacks the ability to edit it. It may be expensive for the institution or for the students, but it's been around for a while, and that's what a lot of folks are using. And what we're seeing is a lot of schools more so focusing on adopting open educational resources. Think of OpenStax. We actually just signed a partnership with OpenStax. So The challenge with open educational resources is there's no support and service behind those. So that can be challenging for the adoption of those open educational resources. And we really fit in the middle. So we're a best of both worlds approach, because we have the powerful platform that we've been talking about today, where we're leveraging the science of successful learning, but we've also brought in OER titles. Like I mentioned, OpenStax. We have content providers like the University of Waterloo, who has actually helped us build out content packs that we can then offer to clients. And again, you don't have to use those content packs as is. You can edit them, take pieces from here or there, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But that was covered pretty heavily last week. And here's just the last slide I want to show is just some sample student success rates from the University of Waterloo. So for their calculus fall term, since adopting Möbius, they saw a 37% decrease in their DFW rates. So that's really what we like to see. You know, students are better grasping these complex materials, and that has to do with using a platform that's created specifically for teaching math-based courses online.
Just Steve, a common question we get regarding that case study itself, or that example, is if the students knew that they were obviously being studied for this, or they were going to be tracked for this, and they did not. All they knew was that they were utilizing a new technology. And this is also with the intent of adding that content pack and doing the online learning as well, not just the assessment. So it was when they fully put everything in Möbius and got it online. Did the students know? They did not know. And this is the success that they saw at University of Waterloo.
Cool. Yeah, good point. Thanks, Nate. Yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to jump them in. I'm just going to stop sharing quick and then switch the screen that I'm going to share, and we'll hop into the actual platform. I'll stop sharing here.
James, if you do have a question, feel free to put to all panelists and attendees as we go through, and that way we can all take a peek at it. But happy to answer any questions now before we dive in. But we are going to be looking at the instructor's perspective when he logs in. He has obviously some classes where the role is he's an instructor, and we have a few set things that we're going to show, but we're also going to leave time at the end for you to point and say, you know, show me that. Yeah. And there's a few things that we do defer to a technical demonstration. So if you have an excellent question, a really good one, we might say, you know, that'd be better answered by one of our technical reps. And we hire and employ physicians and mathematicians on staff to be able to get into the weeds of the math and answer those math-based questions. But maybe we'll probably ask you to answer some of the algorithmic questions, because we'd be guessing, you know, a 25% rate there. So
yeah, that's a good point, Nate. Both of us are not math majors, so as we're going through some of this stuff, if it seems a little wonky or something from the way that we're presenting it, please do keep that in mind. So right now we've logged into Möbius, and Nate, let me know if I need to make this bigger or anything. I'm looking at it on my monitor. So
yeah, no, you're okay. You're okay.
Okay, cool. So yeah, again, we're looking at the instructor's view. We've just logged in here. The great thing with Möbius is it's LTI 1.3 compatible. So, you know, you can have this directly integrated with any learning management system that supports LTI, like Blackboard, Moodle, Brightspace, all of those. Right now, I can see the classes where my role is the instructor, and this is my demo environment. So I can also see classes that I'm taking. So basically I can view these classes as a student. There's a parent-child structure with the classes. So it just helps make it easier to roll out classes on a semester by semester basis. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to one of our sample courses, this What is Möbius? And we'll show what some of those interactive pieces look like. So I'll click on What is Möbius? This is just a sample lesson. It's not any specific subject, but we can sort of see some of the content within the system. So right now I'm looking at this sample calculus unit called modeling with exponential functions. You can see this short little video here, just kind of displaying some of the elements here. The nice thing is this just renders in line. This is not an image. Like I can't the nice thing is, yeah, it renders in line using, I believe it's MathJackson MathML. So any screen reader can read this. Accessibility has been a huge thing for our company. So, being able to read some of this notation, whether that's math notation or even like chemical notation, Möbius can read that. We'll scroll down here. We see that, with HTML, we can highlight certain sections here. Keep scrolling. We have this little interactive narrative here. I'm going to turn the volume down. But again, this is the interactive narrative concept that I talked about. So this can either be a slideshow or a video with a narrative talking over it. There is a narrative, but there is actually audio behind this, but I just muted it here. And the nice thing, you can input these stops in the video. So I believe there's one at about 58 seconds here. So again, the video just stopped. You can really make sure that students are actually watching these. There's analytics behind these videos as well. So this is just a simple pause. You could have this pause, ask a question, or anything like that. And then we start to get into some of our interactive activities, so you can really start to visualize some of the concepts that are being taught. This is a sample, just a couple sample multiple choice questions in line. We're going to give feedback immediately here. I actually got it correct, and some feedback on why I was able to get that correct. If I got it wrong, still get some feedback. I'm going to move on to the next page because I think there's some more advanced questions on there.
Hey, Steve.
Yep.
James has a question about, if possible, any chemistry content that we have. I know we don't have any chemistry content itself as far as a textbook replacement goes, but we do have the ability to show some of the chemistry question types. So once we're done this section on algebra and physics, if you don't mind showing off some of the scientific notation available. And in the chat, James, we actually have some pre-built question banks for chemistry questions. I'm going to link that to you right now, and you can check that out as well after the presentation, okay?
Yeah, and we do have some open, like I believe it's the University of Waterloo has an open science site where anyone can go and see what some of that content looks like. I think that would be a cool link to share. If you don't have it, I can share it after the call as well.
Yeah, I'll
get
you.
Yeah, chemistry.
Share that out.
Chemistry is one of those ones. Yeah, like we don't have the content pack, but we do have functionality within the system to help with chemistry. So yeah, we can definitely talk about that.
But we don't want to start writing checks that Polina has to cash about chemistry.
Yeah,
exactly. We'll keep mum on that one so far, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. So the next thing I wanted to show is how we can start to build algorithmic questions. So this is a prime factorization question. I'm just going to guess here. How did I do? I got it wrong, but I can hit try another, and Möbius will keep throwing up different numbers. So we can create algorithmic variables at any point of this question. And then the feedback will also be based on the algorithm as well. I'll skip past some of this stuff here. Just, some more examples within the system. I think on the next page, we have some HTML5 examples. So this is more of a physics physics module here. I'll just scroll past some of these visuals. Again, more visuals within the system. We have some questions that we can ask here, but then we can get
that image of there, Steve. If you scroll back up, you can see the professor's hand. He actually took that from his phone and loaded it in. If you go up one more to that sheet, you can see his hand on the left side. Yeah, he loaded that in with his own phone. That's
okay, cool, nice. So yeah, what I wanted to get to here is you can really start to bring in interactive activities. So again, there's a lot of interactive elements built into our content packs, but that doesn't mean that you can't bring in, a ChemDraw app into the system as well. So here's an example out of the University of Colorado Boulder, where they just have this interactive activity to really anchor some of those concepts. I'm gonna quit and save. So the next thing that I'll cover quickly is just some of the different question types. And I don't want to go through all of these because can be a little bit overwhelming, but Mobius can handle a lot of different question types. And really a lot of that is powered by the Maple math engine behind the scenes. So we see things like Maple graded questions, open-ended questions. As an example, provide the equation of any line that passes through the point. We saw a little bit of that in the slides. Math equivalence based questions, mathematical formula questions. So again, there is the option for a chemical equation formula to be used. And I'm not a professional at actually creating these questions, but I'll show when we do create a question how you can have that chemical equation be the response area for students. Again, simple numeric questions, those interactive math apps, those can actually be graded activities. So this is a sample one where we're going to drag and drop the planet onto the correct area. And then we can ask how do we do? So these can be brought in anywhere. Things like sketching, free body diagrams. Again, these can all be graded. Clickable images, sorting, matching, basic, free response. So really going beyond some of the question types that you would see in a learning management system. So I know I'm flying through a lot here. If there's things that you wanted to see after, or even if you have questions specifically now, let us know. But any of our team would be happy to set up a demonstration with anyone if there's interest after this. So I'm just going to hop in to show the content repository again. So I'm in my class. Sorry, Nate, were you going to hop in?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Just one quick question, and we get often, especially as you're looking at the class schedule right there. Can I decide as the professor when content and assignment is going to appear to the students? Like, is it impossible to make a pop quiz within Möbius? And that's kind of one question we got asked that resonated with me that I think is really good to clarify.
Yeah, for sure. You have full control over when students can see content, assignments. There's all, and I can show sort of where those policies are set. And we have a lot of newer functionality, modern functionality that you would expect in a modern technology tool to be able to roll out, those policies on an assignment or lesson by lesson basis. Good question, Nate.
Thank you, Steve.
So going into the content repository here, this is really where an instructor would build their class. So right now I'm looking at my current class and I've copied in a bunch of chapters that is making this not look very nice, but I can also access any of the content that's within the starter bundle. And the folks that watched our presentation last week saw that you can really clone in this entire course. You can clone in specific lessons or assignments into your course. But if there's pieces missing, it's very easy just to create, a lesson, assignment, adaptive assignment, a question, text, interactive narrative, or even bring in a math app. So say I wanted to build a question here. This is so much different than other systems that we've seen. So I'm just going to do sample one, and then and then I can just use the equation editor to build my question. If I have MathML or LaTeX, I can bring that in, but I'm just going to use the equation editor here, and I'm not actually going to build a correct answer, but forgive me. And then we can add any
James,
sort of.
Feel free to chime in if it's off, James.
Well, I know that's off, but this is where we start to see some of those response areas where, this is the response that we want the students to actually do for this question. So we saw some of those clickable image ones. It could be a document upload for this question, an essay portion to really prove that a student understands the concept, free body diagram, HTML, a list of answers, Maple graded, we saw some of those, matching, things like math apps. Mathematical formulas are obviously one of the most common ones within Möbius. But then the basic ones like multiple choice, numeric, true, false, but also sketching and sorting and from a sketching perspective, being able to set the tolerances so that students will still get the correct answer if they're close. But I can click on the mathematical formula, and then I can easily select a chemical equation as what I want the students to I'm just going to put in just a number here. And I believe I should be able to just preview this here. I haven't actually tried this, but again, the students will have access to this equation editor here for putting in their answer. So again, we can send some sample content from probably open science at the University of Waterloo, which will show some of this in a little bit more detail and give you a little bit better experience. But we could also do a subsequent demonstration focusing on, chemistry specifically. One of the nice things in what you saw from some of the earlier questions is all the questions within Möbius can be algorithmic. So the questions that are already built out within the content repository in one of our content packs, most of them are already algorithmic, but it's very easy to do that. So if you know the code, you can just put it here. We also have this pretty cool designer where you can just say, maybe X is a random whole number between 1 and 5. And we can easily add that and see what that code would be. So if you already know this code, you don't have to use this algorithm editor here. But when I talk about being able to do things directly in the UI, this is the direction that online platforms are going, as opposed to having to pass it to a development team in order to create these questions. We're really powering the faculty members to be able to, one, get started easily with the content pack, but also be able to create questions on your own. Maybe take some of the questions that are already created and tweak them. Or you can go into the questions that are already created and see what some of this code looks like. Like how did Möbius create this algorithmic question for this? You could go in and you could see this, which I think is really cool. And again, you can provide feedback. You saw this above where I created the question, but this I typically hear it called what you see is what you get editor. So this is really where you can bring in any sort of images, videos, write your equations, style it however you'd like. This specifically for feedback. And again, this feedback can be algorithmic too. So you can just incorporate the algorithmic variables into the feedback and get the feedback that way as well. And you can see it's the same sort of editor here.
Hey, Steve.
Yep.
There's actually a question from James, and I'm not sure how to answer it. So I think we'll crowdsource our answer. And he's asking, is there course material that he himself can take, like as if he was the student? Would that just be him enrolling himself in a class that it's administered by someone else at Laurentian?
Is there courseware that he has? I'm not sure I completely understand the question.
Can you elaborate on that, James? Just are you hoping to learn about multivariate statistics? Yeah. So if there was a statistics professor at Laurentian and you wanted to sign up for their course, I'm sure you'd be able to do that. If you would just be creating another login or account and pay your $35 calendar a year, and then you'd be set. Is my understanding of it? If you think that's right, Steve.
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense. Like right now, like when you're like, if there's an instance specifically for a school, you'd be able to see all the content that exists on that instance, and you can go through, even as the instructor, you can go through some of the content. So as an example, if I go back to my Möbius class, I can just go through some of this content as if I were a student. So the instructor can go through and make sure that the content is showing up correctly. One of the things that we also offer is an evaluation site. And our evaluation site actually has all the content on it. So if you wanted to see, evaluate some of the content there, we could set up an evaluation site for you, and you could go in and you would have the same sort of access that I have today. So you would have instructor access, be able to build questions, be able to see the content that exists within Möbius, and see some of the things firsthand that we're going through today.
And I believe Laurentian already has an instance set up. I believe one of your colleagues, James, in the math department is a customer right now. So if you were added to that instance, all the course packs in the starter bundle, I believe statistics is included in that. You could get access to that and just go through it yourself as an instructor. So that's one option to think of as well, because I believe that I'm not sure if it's Peter. I think that name doesn't ring a bell. I'll have to ask the account executive in Canada. The name is, but I'll put them in touch with you, James, for sure. And you can probably check out the statistics pack just internally as access to Möbius is as given. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one thing to always keep in mind is All of this content, this has been something that's been new, but growing extremely fast for us here at Möbius and Digital Ed. All these titles in the starter bundle, they've really been added within the last 3 years. So we have customers that are, 10, 15, 20 years with us. And maybe they've only used Möbius for assessment. So maybe they actually haven't adopted the starter bundle yet. So I'm not sure if that's the case for Laurentian. I haven't worked with the team or anyone there. So yeah, just keep that in mind, Nate. So it'd probably be good just to connect, again, with the account executive for the account.
Yeah, James, I'll shoot you an email after the session, James, and just put you in touch with the appropriate person, and she can walk you from there.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I flew through a lot of stuff here. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I missed that would be impactful to show. One of the things that I do like to cover, we do have some Proctor tools built in the system, but we also integrate with third-party tools like Proctorio or HonorLock to help from that front. Within our system, we have things like a lockdown browser and Proctor access to start, or password requirements for quizzes and exams, which are used by a lot of schools. But again, we don't have any of the like video proctoring based in the system. And then there's a full grade book. If you integrate via LTI, all those grades push back into the learning management system. What some of our customers will do if there is not an integration set up, they'll just export those grades via CSV and then bring them into any necessary system. So I'll go back to my homepage here. I think that's it from what I wanted to show today. Are there any other questions, Nate?
So James, thank you, James. He's just saying, I think I've seen what I need to see from the platform. It's really cool. And I wish I had it when I was a student. And I think that's actually the sentiment that we both have, because when I was growing up, math, I couldn't visualize math very well. And I think having something like this would have helped me a lot as a student when I was younger. So that's why I'm happy to be a part of this company.
Yeah, appreciate that feedback, James. Yeah, I'm glad you got to come and check it out today. And if you have any questions after the session, feel free to reach out to Nate, and Nate will definitely collect you with the AE for Laurentian.
All right. I think we'll probably wrap it up there and call it a day.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for attending, James, and for everyone that will be watching the recording. I hope you enjoyed the session. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions to follow. But appreciate everyone's time today.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care.